The jury back in? They're on their way, so come on and approach. Ladies and gentlemen, gotten some information that there may be some confusion as to what occurs when objections are made, so I'm going to go ahead and read to you the instructions that I read this when we began this trial Monday morning, and it's 2.1 preliminary instructions, the portion of which deals with objections. The attorneys are trained in the rules of evidence and trial procedure, and it is their duty to make all objections they feel are proper. When an objection is made, you should not speculate on the reason why it is made. Likewise, when an objection is sustained or upheld by me, you must not speculate on what might have occurred had the objection not been sustained, nor what a witness might have said had he or she been permitted to answer. Does that help clear that up? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. West, you may proceed.
Would the clerk please drop the screen? I'd like to display.
Yes. To dim, or?
Well, I'm asking the assistance of the states. We just want to.
It's on. It just has to warm up. It's warming up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I don't know how long that will take. In the meantime, I could just use this board. Just for the record, States Exhibit 1 is being published and available for the jury to see during the witness's testimony. And may I inquire?
Yes, you may.
Ms. Jeantel, you see States Exhibit 1 that appears to be a map, do you not?
Yes, sir.
I take it from your testimony you don't know what that is.
No, sir.
So I won't ask you to identify anything if you don't know what it is.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but I do want to talk with you about where we left off before the break, and
Yes,
that was at the moment.
May I object to that exhibit being on, since this witnesses can't identify what it is, there's no purpose in this exhibit being
Are you going to be questioning about the exhibit?
Your Honor, I want the exhibit on so the jury can put this witness's testimony in the context of what has already been acknowledged to be the community retreat at Twin Lakes.
Okay.
So what I'd like you to do, ma'am, is pick up at the point where we left off before the break, and that was when Trayvon Martin began to run and the phone disconnected. Okay?
Yes, sir.
You knew that he was running at that point because you could hear wind.
Yes, Mr. West. Yes, Mr. West.
So not only had you told him to run, but you believed that he was running.
Yes, sir.
And that's when the phone cut off.
Yes, Mr. Westman.
And then about 20 seconds later, you reconnected and you were able to talk with him.
Yes, Mr. West.
And you don't know where he was exactly at that point, correct?
He had told me he's in the back of his father's fiancé house.
So what you believed at that point was that when the call reconnected about 20 seconds later, he was already at the back of where he was
By
staying.
his father's fiancé house.
By the back of the father's fiance's house.
Yes.
That's where he was staying.
Yes, sir.
And while you didn't know where that was, your sense of it, your belief was that he was close to home.
Yes, sir.
So after he reconnected, that's where he said he was.
Yes, sir.
And then did you continue to talk with him?
Yes, sir.
And I know you think that's where he was, but what could you tell by his voice at that point?
Breathing hard.
He was breathing hard. Okay. Are you sure?
Tired.
Are you sure he was breathing hard, or that might have just been wind noise from the signal
No.
on the cell phone?
It was him breathing hard.
And
He sounded tired.
he sounded tired from running?
Yes, sir.
That was your impression.
Yes, sir.
And that he breathed hard.
Yes, sir.
And his voice changed too, didn't it?
Yes, sir.
It got kind of low,
Yes, sir.
almost like a whisper.
Yes, sir.
And then he continued to talk with you in that voice for a couple of minutes.
Yes, sir.
And about a couple of minutes later, he said he saw the man again.
Yes, sir.
And he saw, what he told you was the man was close to where he was.
Yes, sir.
And that's when Trayvon Martin decided to say to this man, "Why are you following me for?"
Repeat your question again.
A couple. Could we have that read back? Sorry. I've lost track. My question.
And that's, okay. And that's when Trayvon Martin decided to say to this man, "Why are you following me for?"
Right.
Yes, sir.
And he didn't say it, "Why are you following me for?" He didn't say it, "Why are you following me for?" He said, "Why are you following me for?" Didn't he?
No, sir. Not that kind of way, sir.
It was just a question. "Hey, mister, why are you following me for?"
He didn't say, "Hey, mister, why are you following me for?" He just asked a question. "Why are you following me for?" And the man replied in the breathing voice that, "What are you doing around here?"
We've already been over that, what he said and what you said he said. But
Yes,
let's
Mr.
focus on
Your
that.
Honor, she's trying to answer the question.
Okay. Did you finish answering your question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
Let me ask your next question.
So, however, you'd been talking to Mr. Martin on the phone for a couple of minutes at this point.
Yes, sir.
He was talking kind of low, in a whisper,
Yes, sir.
and he said he saw the man close to him.
Yes, sir.
And then he decided to say to the man, "Why are you following me for?"
Objection asked and answered.
This will be the last time that's asked.
Yes, sir.
And at that point, you heard a response of some sort.
Yes, sir.
Either, "What are you talking about?" or "What you doing around here?"
What are you doing around here, sir?
And that's when you heard what you described initially as a bump.
Yes, sir.
When you talked to Mr. Della Rionda on April 2nd, down at Sabrina Fulton's home,
Yes, sir.
at one point in the interview, you said to him, "So the last thing you heard was some kind of noise like something hitting somebody." And your answer was yes. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Like something hitting somebody, correct?
A bump, sir.
I'll say it again. So the last thing you heard was some kind of noise like something hitting somebody.
That Trayvon got hit. Trayvon got hit.
You don't know that, do you?
No, sir.
You don't know that Trayvon got hit.
He could. He had.
You don't
to.
know that Trayvon
He-
didn't at that moment take his fist and drive it into George Zimmerman's face,
Please lower your voice.
do you?
No, sir.
What you heard after that, though, when you talked to Mr. Crump, was nothing else. That's when the phone cut off.
Yes, sir.
That's what you wrote in the letter, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's what you told Ms. Fulton earlier in the day on March 19th.
Yes, sir.
However, on April 2nd, when you were talking to Mr. Della Rionda in Sabrina Fulton's home, with her sitting next to you, when Mr. Della Rionda says, "Okay," when you heard that noise, something hitting somebody, you didn't, did you hear the man say anything, or did you hear Trayvon say anything? Remember that question?
Yes, sir.
And up until that point, you had never told anyone that after this hit, that you heard anything else, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you said on that day, with Ms. Fulton sitting next to you, "I could hear a little bit."
Yes, sir.
And you said that "I could just hear like, I guess, like the headphone, 'cause the headphone he might got off." Correct?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Della Rionda said, "Okay, what could you hear?" And you said, "Like a little get off some stuff."
Yes, sir.
And that was the first time you'd ever said that to anybody, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Della Rionda said, "Could you tell who was saying that?"
Yes, sir.
And you said, "I couldn't hear it was Trayvon. I couldn't know if it was Trayvon." Something like that.
Objection improper.
If you have what she said, you need to read that.
I have to I have to play it. I can't, the transcript isn't accurate enough because of the way it was said. We can mark that and maybe come back and play that.
Can I read it, sir? Can I read it? I'll tell you what I said.
If it has my notes on it, you can disregard those.
I don't need your notes. Just let me read it.
I'll see if I have one, I think.
She's asked for the transcript so she can tell you what she said. I think that we should try that first.
Okay. Multiple page transcript, let me find the one. I've never seen that transcript. Do you have an extra copy of that one? If I could, I don't mind looking at it.
Yes, you may.
Well, we'll take them both up there. How's that? May we do that?
Yes, you may.
May I have person witness citizens for sure, and ownership?
Yes, you may. Please don't block the view of the jury or get too close to the witness.
Ms. Jeantel, this is a transcript, I believe, of that part of the conversation we've been talking about that I was referring to. And then this is the same part of the conversation from the transcript that Mr. Delarianda had. Would you just take a moment and look at the pertinent sections of each of those? Yeah, take your time. Have you had a chance to look at those?
Yes, sir.
So, does that refresh your recollection? Do you remember now what you said?
Yes, sir.
What is it that you said?
I had said he had asked me to make it clear.
All right.
He had asked me to make it clear. I don't understand what you had said. To make it clear, did you say that he heard get off? I had said, yeah. I heard Trayvon saying get off a little bit. So as I was calling his name.
No, the question was, didn't you say to Mr. Delarianda on that tape-recorded interview, when he asked you if you knew who it was, you said,
It was Trayvon. I heard him.
I know that's what you're saying today, but I'm asking what...
Objection, improper impeachment.
If you'll read what she said on that date, that would answer that.
I'm going to read both of them because there's an issue on that. I thought the witness could straighten out. So, according to this transcript that you just saw, when Mr. De La Rionda said, could you tell who was saying that, you said, I couldn't hear Trayvon.
I could hear it. Read the next page, sir.
I got that, but I'm talking about this one now, correct?
Yes, sir.
On the transcript that Mr. De La Rionda has, on page 14, could you tell who was saying that? Your answer was, I could have heard Trayvon. I could have heard Trayvon.
Objection, improper, read the whole part as opposed to only
Want
part.
to complete her answer, please?
Oh, sure. Could you tell who was saying that? I could have heard Trayvon.
I could hear Trayvon.
Could have is what this says.
Trust me, they messed up. I could hear Trayvon.
What you said was, on that recording of that interview that you had a chance to listen to within the last couple of weeks, you said, I could...
Stop. Again, one at a time. You need to finish your answer, and then you can ask your next question. Don't ask her question while she's trying to finish her answer. Complete your answer, and then we'll have the next question.
Because my voice is low, I had told him I could hear Trayvon. Can you just read it? You
Right.
can finish reading this, sir.
On this transcript, it says, could you tell who was saying that?
I didn't write
And the
that.
transcript here says, let me finish
I did
reading.
not write that.
Okay,
I
you
know.
need to do the same thing. Wait till Mr. West finishes his question before you give the answer. And the reason I have everybody do that is because the court reporter can only take down one person talking at a time.
Yes,
So,
sir.
listen to the question.
So, according to this transcript, it says, could you tell who was saying that? And your answer was, I could have heard Trayvon. Mr. De La Rionda said, I'm sorry, as if he couldn't hear what you said or understand it. You then said, I could have heard Trayvon.
I would ask that the,
And-
thank you, could read the next half the page, which gives us a complete answer as to this issue.
Well, there'll be lots of opportunity. What I would like to do now, though, Judge, is play the recording and let the jury decide what this witness said.
Is it in evidence? Is it in evidence?
I don't think it was pre-marked as in evidence, but we can offer it. We just want to play that part to see if it refreshes
I
this.
understand what you want to do. My question is it in evidence?
No.
And you don't think it is. Then it needs to be marked for identification. The state needs to say whether they object or not, and then I'll make a ruling as to whether it gets admitted. So if you want to take a moment to have it marked, you may do so.
Your Honor, okay.
Maybe approach the bench, and I'd ask that we approach with the transcripts so the court can read the actual transcripts in that part of it.
You may approach the bench. to take up a short matter outside of your presence, so if you'll please put your papers, notepads face down on the chair and follow Corporal Dents back into the jury room. Ms. Jeantel, please remain seated. Stacy, they're going to play a portion of the tape for you to listen to. Okay, has it been marked? Please be seated. Has it been marked?
Did you ever get any response? Okay. So the last thing you heard was some kind of noise, like something hitting somebody?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you heard that noise, something hitting somebody, did you hear the man say anything, or did you hear Trayvon say anything?
I can hear a little bit.
Okay, what could you hear?
I could have just hear like it's like the headphone, cause the headphone he might got off, but I could still hear a little bit like
What could you hear?
like a little get off some stuff.
You heard get off?
Like a little get off. Now
Okay.
I call it.
Could you tell who was saying that?
I couldn't know Trayvon.
I'm sorry.
I couldn't hear Trayvon.
Okay, you're all right.
And your question to Ms. Jeantel is?
That she said on the recording that I couldn't hear was Trayvon, or couldn't hear Trayvon, or it could have Trayvon, whatever you can tell us that's said.
Your Honor, I object this not a complete in terms of this witness being able to hear, because the next part, she clears up what it is. The answer, they have cut it off midstream.
That's true, Judge, but the theory is that Mr. De La Rienda walked her right down the path, suggested things to this witness under the circumstances that she just followed along and agreed to.
I asked you, what is your question to this witness?
What did she say? What did you say right there?
I could hear Trayvon.
I could hear him.
Yes.
Let's play it again.
Did you hear the man say anything, or did you hear Trayvon say anything?
I can hear a little bit.
Okay, what could you hear?
I could have just hear like it's like the headphone, cause the headphone he might got off, but I could still hear a little bit like
What could you hear?
like a little get off some stuff.
You heard get off?
Like a little get off. Now I call it.
Could you tell who was saying that?
I couldn't know Trayvon.
I'm sorry.
Stop. What exactly did you say there? Would you just tell us exactly what that says?
Could hear Trayvon.
That's your testimony?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I understand the answer, and I want to play it in front of the jury and let them make up their own mind what she said.
Okay. Any objections to this being introduced into evidence?
Yes, Your Honor.
What is the objection?
My objection is she's already stated what it is. I guess they're trying to, the interpretation, the defense is arguing that this say something different.
Okay. Please approach. I don't take speaking objections.
I apologize.
before the jury comes in, just. Well, it would be very helpful for this court if somebody would give me a copy of that transcript.
Okay.
Thank you. Can somebody direct me as to what page you're looking at?
I guess maybe we have an agreement then for this purpose.
Okay, thank you. Let's bring the jury in.
Let's be sure there's no technical issues. If we could just hold for 1 second and swear.
We're waiting for them to come in.
Okay, so the last thing you heard was some kind of noise, like something hitting somebody?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've told them to bring the jury in, we're just waiting. I understand you're ready.
Jurors are present.
Please be seated. Mr. West, you may proceed.
Okay, we're back. Ms. Jeantel, we're going to play part of the recording that we have been talking about. And if you would just listen to the piece from beginning to end of the section that we're playing, I would then like to ask you some questions after that. Okay?
Okay. So the last thing you heard was some kind of noise, like something hitting somebody?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you heard that noise, something hitting somebody, did you hear the man say anything, or did you hear Trayvon say anything?
I can hear a little bit.
Okay, what could you hear?
I could have just hear like it's like the headphone, because the headphone he might got off, but I could still hear a little bit, like
Okay, what could you hear?
like a little get off, some stuff.
You heard get off?
Like a little get off. Now
Okay.
I call it like
Can you tell who was saying that?
I couldn't know Trayvon.
I'm sorry.
I couldn't hear Trayvon.
Okay, let me make sure I understand. You could hear it was Trayvon saying
Yeah,
that?
that's why I was calling his name.
And he was saying what now?
They're like get off.
Get off?
Yeah.
Is that clear that you were hearing that, or you think you heard that?
Yeah, I can hear it a little bit. Get off, get off. Then the phone just hung up.
Okay. All right. Now, before all this started, earlier in the day, had Trayvon been talking to you, right? So you recognize his voice, right?
Yeah.
And you had heard him on prior occasions, so it was crystal clear this was Trayvon talking to you,
Yeah.
right?
Did you hear that clearly enough?
Yes, sir.
So, at one point you said you could hear a little because the headphone might got off.
Was on the grass, sir.
What? Right, but what you're saying here is the headphone, meaning you think that maybe the
Headset fell.
headset might have fell. That's what you were thinking might have happened.
Yes, sir.
But you believe that it was not in the usual position,
Yes, sir.
and that even though what you think the headset was off or got off in some way,
Yes, sir.
that you could still hear a little bit.
Yes, sir.
And what you said was you could hear a little like get off.
Yes, sir.
And when Mr. De La Rianda said who was saying that, didn't you say, I couldn't know it was Trayvon, or I couldn't hear it was Trayvon?
I couldn't hear it that well with Trayvon, but when I heard get off, and I started calling his name, Trayvon, what's going on?
I couldn't but when I heard get off, and I started calling his name Trayvon,
Could it sound like his voice?
because it sounded like his voice.
Yes, ma'am.
It sounded like his voice, or it kind of sounded like
It sounded like his voice.
So help me understand this better. As far as what you said on the recording, when Mr. De La Rionda said, could you tell who was saying that, are you saying that what the jury just heard was you saying, I could hear it was Trayvon?
Yes, sir.
And you didn't say, I couldn't hear it was Trayvon, or I couldn't know it was Trayvon?
I said I could hear it's Trayvon. It's how I speak. You cannot hear me that well.
All right. You were having trouble hearing him because
He
you couldn't.
had trouble hearing me.
Now I'm really confused. Are you saying that
The state attorney had trouble hearing me. Him, next to you. The bald-headed.
that doesn't help much, does it?
No.
So, I'm sorry that I'm not quite clear on what you're saying. You're saying, first of all, to the jury that what you said is, I could hear it was Trayvon.
I could hear it's Trayvon.
And then he asked you again, and you said, that's why I was calling his name.
Yes.
But by then, the phone was disconnected.
Yes.
So you heard, when you gave the, when you answered the questions and gave, for the first time, that you heard this little get off on April 2nd, the phone cut off right after you heard get off.
Yeah. Not cut off. Like you could hear grass sound, wet grass, and you hear some Trayvon just saying get off, then now the script saying Trayvon, and the phone hung up. Ended. The phone ended. The phone had ended. Ended.
So what you're saying is that after you heard something hitting somebody, then you heard grass.
Repeat the question again.
After you say that you heard something hitting somebody, then you heard grass.
I didn't say that. I didn't say somebody was hitting somebody. I heard get off. That's what I said. I started hearing somebody saying, Trayvon saying, get off, sir.
At the beginning of the recording we just played, Mr. De La Rionda said, so the last thing you heard was some kind of noise, like something hitting somebody, and you said, yeah. Do you agree?
I said, yes, sir.
Well, you just heard it, right? Did you hear that?
No, sir.
Could we play that again?
No, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Could we play that part again?
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so the last thing you heard was some kind of noise, like something hitting somebody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you hear that?
Yes, sir.
Is that you?
Yes, sir.
And then when Mr. De La Rionda said, basically after that, did you hear the man say anything or did you hear Trayvon say anything? And you said, I could hear a little bit. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So this is the point where in prior statements you said the phone cut off, correct?
Yes, sir.
But today, in Ms. Fulton's living room, and he asked you, could you hear anything else? You said, yeah. As a matter of fact, I could hear a little bit. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And the first thing you said, well, I could just hear, like, I guess, because the headphone might have come off, or you might got off. So you're saying there that you heard the headphone in your mind
Came out.
came off. And then the next thing you heard was grass.
Yes, sir.
Can you describe that for me? When you say you could hear grass, or even wet grass, like you said yesterday, could you tell me how wet grass sounds?
Wet, like leaf rolling all over.
When you describe the sound as you could hear wet grass, what is it that you actually heard that led you to make that opinion?
Somebody rolling on top of the grass.
Are you
Sir.
saying now that you heard people rolling on the grass?
It's actually an improper characterization of what she stated.
You sustained, you asked her to describe, and she gave you what she could give as a description. It's,
Well, let's hone in on that just a second. So you said in this interview, and then you said today, that after the sound of something hitting somebody, and you think the headphone might have been off, you heard wet grass. And I want to know what it is you actually heard that made you form that opinion.
The headset.
I'm sorry?
The headset. All you can hear is somebody rolling on the headset. Cause Trayvon had his headset. So
Are you saying now that you heard somebody rolling on the headset?
yeah, on top of the Trayvon.
Yeah,
It had to be on top of the Trayvon. That's where his headset be at.
Are you saying that the sound of wet grass that you used to describe this yesterday, as you describe it today, you're saying that you believe that was people rolling around on the ground?
Yes, sir.
And what's that based on? What is the sound you heard that led to that conclusion?
I really don't know how to describe it. I really do not know how to describe that
Do you know how one of those headsets works?
like this.
Right. So if something brushes against it, you hear just like what you heard here.
Sir,
So it could have been fabric. It could have been wind. It could have been 1,000 other things than somebody rolling on the ground, couldn't it?
yes, sir.
And for that matter, you don't even know what get off means. Whether that means somebody on top saying that the person underneath was saying get off, or somebody was backing up and saying get off, or what,
let me give the rest of the question.
or what may have been meant if in fact you even heard it.
I did hear get off, sir.
But you don't know what it meant because you didn't see any of this, correct?
No, sir.
And you don't know now how long that took from the point that you heard something hit somebody until you heard the wet grass, until you heard the get off, until the phone disconnected. How long did that take?
I don't know, sir.
Is,
I was not timing
Well, in fact, I take it that you were in your house trying to fix up your hair.
Trust me, I had stopped.
Yesterday, didn't you say that when this conversation was taking place,
When it was
you were
ta-
fixing your hair?
Yes, as Trayvon was waiting for the rain to slow down from the melon area. That's what I
At
said.
what point then, if any, in this conversation did you pay particular attention
When I had called back,
when he was sort of whispering in the low voice after
when I
you said he
had
lost the
called
man?
back, yeah, after he finished running.
All right, so were you still working on your hair or did you stop?
No, sir.
Were you paying particular attention at this point?
Yes, sir.
So were you on a handset or Bluetooth at that point?
Bluetooth.
Were you doing anything else other than listening intently to what was being said?
Yes, sir.
What were you doing?
Trying to listen what's going on. I'm trying to listen to Trayvon because I had my Bluetooth on.
You were still at home?
Yes,
Were you
sir.
doing anything else?
I was in the bathroom.
Was the water running?
No, sir.
Why not?
Why I need the water on?
I don't know, I'm asking.
I'm trying to fix my hair. I don't need the water on. I put the iron down, the hair iron down, after I called Trayvon back. And I called back. He answered. He told me he ran from the back.
So at that point, you were still in the bathroom?
Yes, sir.
Any background noise at all?
No, sir.
And you had stopped fixing your hair? And you were listening only to the phone call?
Yes, sir. I had called him back.
Right, and that's when he had stopped running and that he was speaking in this lower, more like whispering voice. Correct?
No, sir. I told you he sounded tired. Because I had told him keep running. He said, he'll just walk faster. And I said, okay, because it sounded to me like he was tired. His voice had changed, sir.
So this was after he had lost the man.
Yes. He
And
ran from the back.
He was tired from running,
Yes, sir.
is what you assumed,
Yes, sir.
as if he had run a long way,
Yes, sir.
and that you knew his voice was lowered, as opposed to his normal talking voice.
I didn't say his voice was low. I did not say his voice was lower.
You told Mr. Del Riondo on April 2nd that it was.
It sounded like he was tired. That's what I told you.
We'll come back to that in a moment, but I don't want to lose track of what we're doing here. So you were in the bathroom, and because of what Trayvon Martin was saying, you were paying more attention at this moment than you had been previously,
Yes, sir.
and that you knew at this point that he had run and that he had lost
Yes,
the man,
sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
And that his voice had changed,
Yes, sir.
and you thought it was because he was tired from running.
He sounded tired, sir.
And you don't know how far he may have run.
No, sir.
Overruled, that will be the last time for that question.
You don't know how far he'd run.
No, sir.
And you have this conversation with him for a couple of minutes. And then he says he sees the man again.
Yes, sir.
And are you really paying attention now?
I was been paying attention, sir.
I'm sorry.
I was been paying attention, sir.
I was.
Been paying attention, sir.
So after you're talking to him on the phone, he seems out of breath for a couple of minutes. He says to you he sees the man again. And you pay particular attention now?
I was been paying attention, sir, when I had called him back.
So the answer is yes, you were focusing on this.
Yes, sir.
And as he says, he sees the man, and as he confronts him and says, "Why are you following me?" you're really paying attention then.
Objection to this characterization in terms of the word confront.
Okay. Ask her a question, let it be her words.
He confronted him by saying, "Why are you following me?" didn't he?
Yeah, objection, Your Honor.
We'll listen to your answer. You may answer.
And he told me to do was close to him.
Right. At that point, he decided to approach this man and say, "Why are you following me?"
Yes, sir.
And he could have just run home if he wasn't there.
He was already by his house. He told me.
Of course, you don't know if he was telling you the truth or not.
Why you need to lie about that, sir?
Maybe if he decided to assault George Zimmerman, he didn't want you to know about it.
That's real retarded, sir. That's real retarded to do that, sir. When you don't know the person, why a person? Trayvon did not know him.
Okay. What I'm trying to get at is you're paying attention to this. Somebody or something hit somebody. In all your statements before, you said that's when the phone cut off. And in your statement on April 2nd, you're saying you heard a little get off, get off. And today you're saying it sounded like somebody rolling on the ground, correct?
Objection to this characterization is to the prior statements that she
Okay,
made.
I think that response was because you asked her to describe what she meant by wet grass. So, objection sustained. You may ask your next question.
And what I'm focusing on now is how long did that take for you to hear all of that stuff going on before the phone cut off?
I don't know, sir. I was in timing it, sir.
What your sense of it? I know that you weren't timing it. You'd never said that before. So when you said it to Mr. De La Rionda, how long do you think it took since you were so concentrating on that?
Objection, ask and answer.
You may answer the question.
I don't know, sir.
But you knew something had just happened.
Yes, sir.
And in the statement on April 2nd is when you said, get off, and it was kind of low, correct?
Yes, sir.
Kind of low for a couple of reasons. One, because it wasn't said very loudly, or because the headset was somewhere else.
No, sir. I was in there, sir.
And you don't really know who actually said that, even if it were said, do you?
Yes, sir.
It could have been Trayvon, is what you said, correct?
Yes, sir.
So, at the point, though, that all of that happened, you are saying now that you knew something had taken place.
Yes, sir.
But the reason you didn't do anything about it, tell anybody what you had heard, come forward to the police, is because in your mind it was justified. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, it was justified that Trayvon Martin started. That's why you weren't worried. That's why you didn't do anything. It was because Trayvon Martin started the fight and you knew that.
Objection, compound question, badgering the witness. Argument.
But you may answer.
No, sir. I had told you before. I did not knew this man was out of jail.
I'm
So,
talking. Go
I
ahead.
don't know what you're talking about.
I'll say it again. After you were concentrating so closely on that last part of the conversation with Mr. Martin, where he's speaking in a lower voice for a couple of minutes, And then he says, I see the man again.
I'm going to object to his characterization as to the time that this witness heard Mr. Martin.
Okay, please rephrase your question.
After Mr. Martin ran, and you reconnected with him, you were talking with him for a couple of minutes before he told you he saw the man again, correct?
Yes, sir.
And during that time, he was speaking in this somewhat low, that you considered to be out-of-breath tone.
Yes, sir.
And you started paying particular attention because he said to you, he sees the man again, or the man's following him.
Yes, sir. You can still hear the wind, sir. You can hear the wind, sir. I could hear the wind. That's how I know Trayvon was still walking, sir.
As opposed to hiding?
Yes, sir.
So you think he was walking as opposed to hiding because you could hear wind on this headset?
Yes, sir.
As if he couldn't be standing still and there could also be wind?
Trust me, it's not windy. Yes, sir.
At the point, though, where he tells you that he sees the man again, or as he said, the man's right there,
Yes, sir.
he decides to approach the man and say, why are you following me for?
Objection, argumentative, and misstatement of the facts.
Sustained.
No, sir.
The objection's been sustained, so wait for another question. Thank you.
There's no question in your mind, is it, that Trayvon Martin, based upon what you said and what he said and what you heard, that he approached the man and said, why are you following me for?
Same objection, Your Honor, and also compound question.
Okay, sustained.
May we be heard at the bench, please?
No. Ask the question again.
You believed at that point that Trayvon Martin approached the man and said, why are you following me for?
No, sir.
Well, do you want to explain that?
Trayvon told me the man was behind him and kept being close by him. That told me a lot. Close.
Trayvon told me that the man was behind him and kept being close by him. And what you said after that?
That's gave me a point. That gave me a point that the man was behind Trayvon. Sir.
So he told you that he could see the man again. The man was behind him.
Yes.
Correct?
Close.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
And if he were hiding somewhere and the man walked close to him, they would be close together, correct?
Objection, argumentative, and in fact.
Sustained.
In any event, your sense of it was that they got close together at that point.
He got close to Trayvon. Yes, sir.
And you don't know whether the man was approaching Trayvon at that point and getting closer, or whether Trayvon was approaching the man and getting closer.
Trayvon would have told me he'll call me back, sir, if he was going to approach him, sir.
So you're assuming that Trayvon didn't approach the man because he would have told you if he was going to confront the guy, he would call you back when it was over?
Yes, sir.
In any event, you knew something was going to happen, I take it.
No, sir.
You knew that he had said to the man, why are you following me for?
Yes, sir.
And you knew in your mind that it was going to be a fight.
No, sir.
But when you...
Maybe an argument.
You thought Trayvon Martin would approach a man he'd never seen in his life, and
I did
that
not
he
say
would...
Trayvon approached the man, sir.
Either way, Are you saying that you thought that Trayvon would have the discussion with that guy that he'd never met in his life, didn't know who he was, didn't know anything about him, this creepy-ass cracker, and have just a gentlemanly conversation about why you following me for?
The dude was close. The man was close to him, sir. He just...
So Trayvon decided, instead of just running away, to confront this guy.
Objection, argumentative.
Of course it's...
No, sir.
All right. But at the end of all of this, after you heard something hitting somebody, what you thought
bump,
might...
sir.
Hmm?
A bump, sir. A bump.
We played it right at the beginning of this recording. Mr. Delarianda said the last thing you heard was something hitting somebody, and you said yes.
Objection, improper impeachment. Based on I'll be glad to clarify.
Thank you. You may answer the question.
I don't remember saying that, sir.
Given all of that, whatever it was, whether it was a bump, whether it was somebody hitting somebody, I thought, in fact, that you said that it could have been, for all you know, Trayvon Martin smashing George Zimmerman in the face is what you actually heard.
What?
Yeah, just earlier today.
By who?
By you.
You ain't get that from me?
After all of that happened, you decided not to do anything because you thought it was just a fight and that you didn't need to come to Trayvon Martin's aid, did you?
What? Repeat what your question again, sir.
Whatever that was happening that you were paying particular attention to, you decided that you didn't need to call anybody, call the police, report anything because you thought it was just a fight.
I did call him back, sir.
Of course, but you didn't get an answer. Didn't that make you even more worried?
I called back again, sir.
And I would assume that would heighten.
And I had text, sir.
Still no answer.
No, sir.
A couple of calls, a text, and no answer.
No, sir.
And the reason you didn't do anything was because you thought it was just a fight.
And I thought his father was around there.
But you thought it was just a fight because it was one you knew that Trayvon Martin was planning to start.
No, sir. He would have told me, sir, and told me to call him back or he'll call me back, sir.
So you figure then that if Trayvon Martin was getting ready to sucker punch somebody and get in a fight, that he would have told you, let me take care of this and I'll call you right back?
Argumentative speculation.
Is that what you're saying? That you're saying that if Trayvon Martin was getting ready to assault this man, that he would have said, hang on a minute, I'll call you back?
Say objection, argumentative speculation.
Just 1 second. Overruled.
No, sir. He would not let me on the phone.
But you wouldn't.
No, sir.
You,
No, sir, he would not.
Allow me on the phone with him if he was about to have a fight.
I didn't
Sir.
understand. I didn't understand it. Say that again. What about that he would have told you if he was getting ready to have a fight?
If he was going to confront the man, he would have told me, oh, I'm about to confront the man and see what he wants. He did not tell me that, sir. He just told me he trying to get home, sir. But the man was still following him, sir.
So you're assuming that if Trayvon Martin were planning to confront this man and assault him, that he would have given you a heads up?
Objection to mischaracterization of what this witness said.
The witness's answer is what it is.
Well, has he ever told you that before? That he was going to assault someone and he'd call you back?
Improper questioning.
Well, that's not a
Your
proper
Honor, I'll be glad
objection,
to,
so
I didn't want to make a
overruled.
speaking objection, Your Honor. We've had this issue before.
Counsel, please approach.
In any event, you didn't take any steps or even have any particular concern about what you heard, because in your mind it was just a fight.
I did, sir.
In the conversation that you had with Mr. Della Rionda on April 2nd, he asked you some questions about whether Trayvon Martin had told you that the man had gotten out of the car. Do you remember those questions?
No, sir.
Let me take a minute and find the reference. So Mr. Della Rionda said to you in a question, I can read it exactly or paraphrase it, but the conversation was that Mr. Della Rionda asked you...
May I see it, sir? May I see it, sir?
Yes, but let me set the stage, if I might. Mr. Della Rionda said, but did he ever say the guy got out of the car?
I don't remember, sir.
You don't remember that
Who are you
Mr.
talking
Della...
about?
Here's what I'm talking about. That Mr. Della Rionda asked you, did he ever say the guy got out of the car? And your response to him was, you want that too? Do you remember that?
I don't remember, sir.
Let's play.
Yes.
That's for you to show her, so if you'll please give her a copy. Yes, you may. Yes, you may.
All right, let me direct your attention to this paragraph, ask you to read that, And it's my note here underneath is what I thought I heard your answer was. So I want you to see if you remember that and if that was your answer, and I'll ask you that.
No, sir.
What is it you say no?
That's not what I said.
You did?
That's not what I said. That's your opinion, sir.
All right.
That's what you thought I
On the
said.
paragraph where Mr. Deliranda asks you, did he ever say the guy got out of the car?
Keep reading this, sir.
And I said, the transcript says that you said you want that too. And you're saying you didn't say that?
No, sir.
Do you remember what you said instead?
No, sir. But I did not say that.
You do specifically remember that when Mr. Deliranda asked you, did he ever say the guy got out of the car, that you did not say in response, you want that too?
No, sir. I did not even say, you want that too. No, I did not say that, sir.
Okay. Could we play that portion, please? I think we have a few minutes.
Thank you.
Sentence only, or whatever.
Well, let's just play.
I'm going to do the rest. I mean, I apologize. I don't mean to make a speech.
Well, let's play that part first.
Improper impeachment in the manner in which it has been played. My objection.
What is the purpose for it being played, sir?
So the jury can
No.
hear for themselves whether or not Ms. Jeantel gave the answer that she just denied giving.
She said those were your notes, not hers.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know what transcript both sides have. I have somebody's transcript, and there's supposedly difference in the transcripts.
Well, Mr. Deliranda's transcript has the witness's response the same way that I do.
Could you show me what page it's on? Because I don't know whose I'm looking at.
Just let the jury hear what.
Well, I've asked a question. Could you tell me, first of all, whose transcript do I have?
May I just clear up because I gave it to you? I gave it to you, it's ours, it does not have an answer on it because it was added in earlier, so what you have just has asterisks, that's not gonna help you.
Could you please tell me what page?
Down to page 15. May I approach and just get this to the end of the last line of the page is when he was at the bail thing. You can find that.
Okay, I must have a different one.
May I approach you on it?
Yes. The pages are not numbered.
Here is the night. And it's where the asterisks are 3/4 of the way down.
I think it's page 14.
Where it doesn't have it.
There's more information about that, so I think you need to play both.
My objection is improper impeachment. That's his intent to do that, and I think we had.
Well, the transcript I have from that question, it has asterisks. There's no answer.
You know, my proposal is that that question and that answer, and her answer be provided, and
But for what purpose? If it's for impeachment, because your transcript doesn't have an answer.
that's right.
It has
because
4
the-
asterisks.
Yes, the transcriptionist seemingly couldn't hear it. Mr.
Okay.
Delariano's
But you're
transcriptionist could, and I believe it's audible enough that the jury can hear it if we just play the recording.
I don't have the other transcript. Is it at all possible for me to get a copy of that?
That would be in the state's possession.
Your Honor, I can see if I've got a clean one. Mine's all.
Just show the court if you like.
For the record, on our transcript, it's at the bottom of page 16, and it continues all the way through page 17.
Thank you.
Sorry. Let me make sure, because this has got bottom of page 16 all the way through page 17.
Thank you. Guess I don't see the language that you had indicated what was said, Mr. West. Where your asterisks are?
Yes, where the asterisks are on this transcript, Mr. Delarianda has a phrase. I see what it says.
Okay, counsel, please approach, because I, the jury back in? Well, they're on their way, so come on and approach. Ladies and gentlemen, gotten some information that there may be some confusion as to what occurred.
Just for the record, State's Exhibit 1 is being published and available for the jury to see during the witness's testimony. And may I inquire?
Yes, you may.
Ms. Jeantel, you see State's Exhibit 1 that appears to be a map, do you not?
Yes, sir.
I take it from your testimony you don't know what that is.
No, sir.
So I won't ask you to identify anything if you don't know what it is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But I do want to talk with you about where we left off before the break, and
Yes,
that was at the moment.
May I object to that exhibit being on, since this witnesses can't identify what it is, there's no purpose of this exhibit being.
Are you going to be questioning about the exhibit?
Your Honor, I want the exhibit on so the jury can put this witness's testimony in the context of what has already been acknowledged to be the community retreat at Twin Lakes.
Okay.
So what I'd like you to do, ma'am, is pick up at the point where we left off before the break, and that was when Trayvon Martin began to run and the phone disconnected. Okay?
Yes, sir.
You knew that he was running at that point because you could hear wind.
Yes, Mr. West. Yes, Mr. West.
So not only had you told him to run, but you believed that he was running.
Yes, sir.
And that's when the phone cut off.
Yes, Mr. Weston.
And then about 20 seconds later, you reconnected and you were able to talk with him.
Yes, Mr. West.
And you don't know where he was exactly at that point, correct?
He had told me he's in the back of his father's fiancé house.
So what you believed at that point was that when the call reconnected about
Occurs when objections are made, so I'm going to go ahead and read to you the instructions that I read this when we began this trial Monday morning, and it's 2.1 preliminary instructions, the portion of which deals with objections. The attorneys are trained in the rules of evidence and trial procedure, and it is their duty to make all objections they feel are proper. When an objection is made, you should not speculate on the reason why it is made. Likewise, when an objection is sustained or upheld by me, you must not speculate on what might have occurred had the objection not been sustained, nor what a witness might have said had he or she been permitted to answer. Does that help clear that up? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. West, you may proceed.
Would the clerk please drop the screen? I'd like to display.
Yes. To dim, or?
Well, I'm asking the assistance of the states. We just want to.
It's on, it just has to warm up. It's warming up.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. I don't know how long that'll take. In the meantime, I could just use this board. About 20 seconds later, he was already at the back of where he was
By
staying.
his father's fiancé house.
By the back of the father's fiance's house.
Yes.
That's where he was staying.
Yes, sir.
And while you didn't know where that was, your sense of it, your belief was that he was close to home.
Yes, sir.
So after he reconnected, that's where he said he was.
Yes, sir.
And then did you continue to talk with him?
Yes, sir.
And I know you think that's where he was, but what could you tell by his voice at that point?
Breathing hard.
He was breathing hard. Okay. Are you sure?
Tired.
Are you sure he was breathing hard, or that might have just been wind noise from the signal
No.
on the cell phone?
It was him breathing hard.
And
He sounded tired.
he sounded tired from running?
Yes, sir.
That was your impression.
Yes, sir.
And that he breathed hard?
Yes, sir.
And his voice changed too, didn't it?
Yes, sir.
It got kind of low,
Yes, sir.
almost like a whisper.
Yes, sir.
And then he continued to talk with you in that voice for a couple of minutes.
Yes, sir.
And about a couple of minutes later, he said he saw the man again.
Yes, sir.
And he saw, what he told you was the man was close to where he was.
Yes, sir.
And that's when Trayvon Martin decided to say to this man, "Why are you following me for?"
Repeat your question again.
A couple. Could we have that read back? Sorry, I've lost track.
Is the question or the answer?
My question.
And that's, okay, and that's when Trayvon Martin decided to say to this man, "Why are you following me for?"
Right.
Yes, sir.
And he didn't say it, "Why are you following me for?"
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
He didn't say it, "Why are you following me for?" He said, "Why are you following me for?" Didn't he?
No, sir. Not that kind of way, sir.
It was just a question. "Hey, mister, why are you following me for?"
He didn't say, "Hey, mister, why are you following me for?" He just asked a question. Why are you following me for? And the man replied in the breathing voice that, "What are you doing around here?"
We've already been over that, what he said and what you said he said. But
Yes,
let's
Mr.
focus on that.
She's trying to answer the question.
Okay, did you finish answering your question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
You may ask your next question.
So, however, you'd been talking to Mr. Martin on the phone for a couple of minutes at this point.
Yes, sir.
He was talking kind of low, in a whisper,
Yes, sir.
and he said he saw the man close to him.
Yes, sir.
And then he decided to say to the man, "Why are you following me for?"
Objection asked and answered.
This will be the last time that's asked.
Yes, sir.
And at that point, you heard a response of some sort.
Yes, sir.
Either, "What are you talking about?" or "What you doing around here?"
What are you doing around here, sir?